Alright, so welcome back everybody. So for this video, I'm going to show you guys how to play this game here, Isle of Night by Red Raven Games. This is sort of like a set collection game. It's a very short game too. What you're going to do is you're going to try to get victory points based on what cards you collect, based on this formation here. You'll notice we have a particular formation that makes up what is known as an island. And you'll notice its exact formation is exactly according to this card here. That means at the end of the game, if there are two dragons, now this is a random formations. In the game, you're going to randomly choose these cards and you're going to randomly place them in this formation. So it just happens that for this video, the dragons are currently going to give you 5 victory points if you have 2 of them. For every pair of dragons you have at the end of the game, they're worth 5 victory points. Okay? That means that these 3 beetles here, if you have 3 beetles, they're going to be worth 4 victory points if you have at least 3. That means if you have 6 beetles at the end of the game, and the beetles are still here, then that means that you're going to get 8 victory points, okay? Same thing with the spears, because they're up here in the same row as the beetles. And then for the butterflies and these sea serpents here, at the end of the game, for each 3 or each 2 of these, you're going to get 3 victory points each. And then the spiders down here, they are worth 2 victory points at the end of the game if you have 3 of them. For every 3, you get 2. And then down here, the swords are only worth 1 point if you have 2 of them. Now, this game is currently like this, set up like this. But there are going to be cards in this game that you can claim that are going to cause these cards to move. That means just because at the beginning of the game, just because these dragons are worth 5 points, they could end up somehow all the way down to the bottom. That is a possibility that could happen. And then your whole strategy of collecting just dragons could literally be thrown out the window because, after all, these cards can be moved. Their orientation can be moved during the course of the game. Now, the way the game is going to end is you're going to get these. Eventually, these lantern cards are going to show up. And at the end of the game, each lantern you have is worth 1 victory point. But you'll notice it says when lanterns claimed equals 3 plus the number of players, the game ends immediately. So, if you're playing a 2-player game, okay, that means when the 5th lantern is claimed by somebody, the game immediately ends completely. No more finishing your turn, it just ends. So that's something to note. When you claim a lantern, you could literally end the game quite early. But that means that lanterns can be sitting, waiting to be collected, and the game will continue until somebody claims said card. So let me explain the flow of the game to give you guys a better understanding of how that would work, okay? So, first of all, the first player that goes is going to draw 3 cards, and they're going to place them in a face-up tableau for all to see. So we have 1 card here. Then we have a 2nd card, and now we have a 3rd card. Now, this is the exact same type of card as this. There might be a different type of thing here, like there's these 2 star symbols on this one. There might be more than 1 beetle on the card, but it doesn't matter. If they share the exact same type of card, they're going to stack, okay? So that means that that's how that's going to be. Now, on my turn, after I've drawn the 3 cards, I'm allowed to take 1 card / 1 stack of cards. So, for instance, I could take this 1 card here by itself, or I could take this stack of cards, meaning I could take both beetles right now on this turn, on the first turn, and that's allowed, taking the entire stack. Okay, but if there's just 1 card and I decide to take the 1 card on its own, because it's on its own, then I just take the 1 card. Now, this is a conch horn or conch shell, okay? And when you claim this, you get to swap 2 adjacent scorecards. This is the card and there's 7 of these. So that means in the game, it's possible that 7 times these cards are going to move. Okay, so you're going to swap 2 adjacent scorecards. So for instance, I could swap the Dragons with the Beetles, placing the Beetles at the very top, and now the Dragons are going to score less points, for instance. That's something I could do, okay? That's one thing that this card does, but if I do that, that's my turn, and I'm not collecting any cards that are going to give me victory points. These shells aren't worth any victory points at the end of the game. So moving them around in the beginning of the game is not going to be super advantageous for you, okay? But that's something you can do. That's how you're going to move the card orientation, okay? But, you know what, I'm going to take the 2 Beetles for my turn, because, hey, right now the Beetles are worth 4 points if I have 3 of them, and I've got 2 here. That's amazing. Now, you'll notice this Beetle has 2 of these star-like symbols here, right? Well, at the end of the game, depending on what island you're playing, so if you're playing Island 1, the player who has the most of these star symbols are going to basically get 5 victory points. So, hey, collecting this Beetle is an additional benefit for me because it's going to help me have the most of these stars, while this one just doesn't have it on it. Still, that's going to be useful. So, yes, you know what? I'm going to take these Beetles and add it to my little tableau, my little area collection of stuff, okay? And then this just remains face up for other players to take. Then player 2 would go, and they would draw 3 cards. So here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3. Now this is a special card. There's going to be a lot of these, but this Amethyst Bay says if you have the lowest score, this location grants you an additional 5 points. So this could change the equation. You could have just a couple points less than another player at the end of the game, and at the end of the game, if you have this, and you have just a couple more points or a few more points than another player, or if you're playing a 2-player game, for instance, this could make it so you win the game. Amethyst Bay. Pretty cool, right? But I can only take 1. Player 2 can only take 1 of these cards, technically. So you know what? Player 2 is going to take these spears, because at the end of the game, the spears are worth a lot of points, too, currently. So yes, he's going to take this spear. And then it says, when you claim this spear, you gain a serpent. So when claimed, claim a serpent. So that means he immediately takes the spear and the sea serpent along with it. Now you'll notice this sea serpent here can only be claimed when you claim spears. So if I was to try to take, if this spear wasn't here, I would not be allowed to take this serpent, okay? I just couldn't take this serpent at all. That means if you drew 3 sea serpents, and that's all that was here, and these hearts weren't here, then you wouldn't be able to claim anything at all, okay? Because you're not allowed to claim this unless you claim a spear. Now, you're only allowed to claim 1 serpent per spear. So if there were 2 spears stacked on top of each other, then you could take the 2 spears because they're a stack, and then you could take 2 sea serpents. That's how that's going to work, okay? But in this equation, we get the spear and we get the sea serpent, okay? So that's what, player 2 is going to do. So now he got a cool spear and he got a cool sea serpent as well. And I just got a couple of beetles. But that's going to continue until a player, reveals and claims lanterns, and until somebody claims their 5th lantern. That's how that's going to be, right? And there's lots of different cards in this game. So while there's cards that can move cards around, there's going to be cards that do a bunch of other things. Besides the sea serpent and the spear, there's the dragon, which can only be claimed if you first claim a sword on the same turn. Now, if you claim a spear and there isn't a sea serpent available, you just get the spear. You don't get the sea serpent, but you can still claim the spear even if there is no sea serpent. This is just a little added bonus if you decide to take the spear, okay? But yeah, there's spiders that you could get. These treasure chests, when you take them, they're just worth a couple of victory points. Cool, right? Easy points, There's also butterflies, okay? More dragons. Let's see here. Oh, here's another lantern. So like I said, when somebody claims the 5th lantern, so if player 1 had 4 lanterns, and player 2 grabbed a lantern, that would be 5 lanterns, and then the game would be over if there was only 2 people. And then you would count up your victory points. There's also these scrolls. So when you claim a scroll, you can lock or unlock a scorecard. So maybe you have a ton of these dragons. You've got maybe 4 dragons, and you're afraid that a player is going to cause those dragons to go down to the bottom. Well, if you take and claim this scroll, if a scroll is face up, and you took the scroll, you could lock a card. So then I could lock those dragons in place. So then that means when somebody takes that conch shell, they can't move this from its location. Okay, it's stuck there until somebody else claims another scroll and then unlocks it. So you can either, like it says, lock or unlock a scorecard. Hence, scorecards. So that's how the scrolls are going to work, okay? And I already explained the conch shells. Okay, so how does a staff work? It says, when claimed, you can discard a card you own to use its when claimed effect. So how is that going to work? Well, let's say, as a point of reference, let's say there is a sea dragon in this face-up area, and there is a staff in this face-up area, okay? And you want that sea dragon. Let's just say, for the point of argument, the sea dragon is highest on the island for victory points, okay? And let's just say the spears are the lowest. So they're not worth very many victory points. But let's say you own a spear. Let's say this spear here is yours, okay? And now it's your turn to take a card, okay? Well, you can take this staff, and then you can discard your spear. So I'll discard this spear. But then using the staff allows you to discard the spear, but then also allows you to use its when claimed effect, which is now you discard the spear, and now you claim the sea serpent. That's the example of how the staff is going to work. It's mostly just for the spear and the sword. Okay? But there are other cards you could potentially discard just because you want to discard them. And that would be these skull rains here. You can discard a skull rain with a magic staff. However, let me explain how these cursed or skull rains are going to work. Each turn before claiming cards, you discard one of your cards and then claim any card, okay? So I could have a ton of cards, okay? And normally on your turn, you're going to draw 3 cards, and then you're going to claim a card or a stack of cards. What this is allowing you to do is discard a card you already have. Maybe you have a conch shell that you used earlier. Well, these conch shells don't give you any of those star symbols, and they're not worth any victory points. So, hey, I might want to use this cursed rain to discard this conch shell to allow me to draw an additional card from a tableau of cards. And then I still have the ability to draw a stack of cards after the fact. However, you cannot use your cursed rain to take a stack of cards. You can only take one card. You cannot take like a stack of cards, like, let me find a stack. Here, hold on. So, like, for instance, these 2 lanterns would be considered a stack, okay? If I had a cursed rain, all right, in my inventory, if I had a cursed rain here, okay, and, let's just say for the point of argument, I discard these 2 spiders, or the spider card, I could only draw 1 lantern with it, with its ability. I couldn't take both of the lanterns. I'm only allowed to take 1. But, for instance, I could use this card to take this card. And then I could still take my normal action and take the stack of lanterns anyway. So that's how that's going to work. Now, that's a powerful effect, you're thinking. Discard a weaker card, potentially, to draw a better card. But you always have to do that. You're always locked into it. So sometimes you're going to be discarding cards you don't want to discard. Now, you are allowed to use this rain to discard lanterns, because they only give you 1 victory point at the end of the game. But the problem is, if you discard too many of these, then there's no way the game can end. So that's why, depending on the amount of players, you're only allowed to discard a certain amount of these lanterns. Otherwise, you've broken the game, and there's no way the game can end. That's bad. So make a mental note of how many people are playing, how many lanterns, because there's 9 of them, and how many people are playing, and how many you can logically discard without breaking the game. There's no rule that says, you know, that you're not allowed to discard these at all. Maybe there should be a rule, but I couldn't find a rule that says you can't discard these lanterns. So you'll just have to make a mental note ahead of time, okay? Don't discard too many of these or you break the game, okay? Now, the reason why these are so powerful is at the end of the game, they're going to give you minus points, okay? So if you just have 1 of these, it's only going to give you 1 minus point. But if you have 2 of these, that's minus 4 points. And if you have 3 of these, that's minus 9 points. But relax. You can only have at most 3 of these rains, okay? At most. But if you have 3 of these rains, these cursed rains, if you have 3 of them, then you have to discard 3 cards. But then that will allow you to draw 3 cards in addition to your other action that lets you just draw cards or draw a card from draw a stack of cards or a card. Or should I say, claim a stack or claim a bunch of cards. But you can, if you had 3 of these cursed rains, then you can claim 3 cards before your other action, normal action, of claiming a stack or a card. But still, while that may be powerful, that's a lot of minus points at the end of the game that could easily cost you the game. Now, there is a card in here that can minimize the amount of damage that the cursed rains are going to do to your victory points. There's only 1 card that can help you. And assuming you get that card, which you may or may not get, is still a risky maneuver. But if you can get the Shrine of the Night, you can gain victory points for all the cursed rains you have. So if you had 3 cursed rains, you'd get 5 victory points, which means you would still lose 4 victory points with these if you had 3 of these, okay? That's how that's going to work. But if you only had 1 cursed rain, then this actually will deduct 1 point, will give you 1 point if you have 1 rain. So basically, if you just have 1 of these, and obviously just this, they cancel each other out, which is nice. It's nice to have this little ability, but you don't want too many of these. Now, you might be thinking, well, what if there's like 4 cursed rains? That means I have to draw 4 of them, and you said I can only have 3. Well, that's the thing. When you claim a cursed rain, you're not entitled to claim the entire stack. You can just take 1. You don't have to take them all. So there might be 4 there, but you're only entitled to take 1 if you're going to take from here. Okay? That's how that's going to work. Now, I don't know everything about this game. There's still a couple of things that I'm hoping Red Raven Games will get back to me on. There's one of these special shrine cards that doesn't quite make sense on how it works or functions. It's called the Shrine of Sacrifice, and who knows where it is in here, so no, that's not it. And so I don't know how that one works, so I'm not going to guess. Hopefully Red Raven Games will get back to me, and I'll understand how it works. The Shrine of Sacrifice, wherever that may be. Here it is. So I'm not sure how this one works, but I'm showing it to you. So maybe you guys can figure it out, but I'm not sure how it works. So I'm not going to guess. But hopefully Red Raven Games will get back to me. And until then, I probably just won't play with the card until I get more information on it, you know, and how it works. Because the rulebook doesn't have information on how that shrine works, unfortunately. But yeah, that's basically how the game is going to work. It's a very simple game. There's obviously a couple of rules that don't quite make a lot of sense, you know. But for the most part, it's a very functional game. Like I said, the whole the amount of lanterns you can discard potentially, right? That rule doesn't make sense because there's no rule that says that you can't or cannot discard lanterns. You can't use the cursed rains to discard themselves. That is one thing the rulebook does say. You can't use this effect to discard this card. That means the only way you're going to discard this card is with the Shrine of Sacrifice, which I don't know how it works yet. and the staff. Those staff cards can discard a card. In fact, it says you can discard any card with that staff, which means any is any card. So you can, see it says any, discard any card you own. So that's the second way, that's probably the main way you're going to discard these rings, if you just want to use them a couple of times. But anyways, like I said, that's how the game works. I hope I explained this game so that way you guys can play it on your own, if or when you decide to get it, you know, or when you can get it. I hope this was a good how to play video. If you guys liked this video, don't forget to leave me a like, and I'll see you guys again next time. Goodbye.